All right, so today we're talking about a military whistleblower who claims that the USA has alien contact. It's been all over the news recently. So we're going to be taking a look at that interview. We're going to be dissecting it. We're going to be answering the question, do aliens exist? Are they here among us? So not only are we going to be talking about just this video and this current thing going around in the news, but we're going to be talking about the concepts of aliens in general. And it's a really good time to talk about it because I'm actually working on a video that will be out pretty soon on the Law of One, which involves contact with an otherworldly being. So this is good timing for this kind of content, and let's jump right into it because there's a lot we have to talk about because we're going to talk about this interview, and we're going to take a look at this interview, and then I'm going to be telling you my thoughts about the interview itself, and then just the concept of aliens in general, the concept of higher beings in general, the concept of contact in general. So let's start this off by bringing this up on screen. And so this is a and here, let me bring it up. Here we go. All right, so let's begin here.
Task Force, recently renamed the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO. And now in a News Nation exclusive, David Grush, an Air Force veteran, former member of that task force, and veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, is formally blowing the whistle on secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before.
Okay, so we have this individual who's involved with the military whistleblowing. There is apparently this UFO retrieval program that's classified or at least hidden from the general public, and a lot of it's been pretty big in the news lately. So let's take a look and see exactly what this individual has to say.
You are one of the most trusted former intelligence officials in the U.S. defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was.
You were trusted with the most intimate secrets.
Yes.
Grush sitting down with award-winning investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, who's reporting for News Nation and has spent years reporting on the UFO question.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
Okay, so he's saying that they were refused access to a crash retrieval program. So there's this program that they're being refused access to. And remember, we're just going to kind of watch. I want you guys to see the gist of it. And I'm not sure how much commentary I'm going to give because I'm definitely going to be giving a lot at the end for sure. So let's just continue and see what he has to say.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
So apparently he's saying there's a program that the U.S. has to retrieve non-human craft.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
Grush alleged.
Okay, so the interesting thing to think about now is so he's been told about the existence of this program. So one thing, first of all, like this is very interesting. It's very interesting to see someone with his position talking about this because he would seem to be a credible source. So this is, again, it's very, very interesting, very intriguing, for sure. It is important to see though, always being critical that he is getting this information secondhand. It's people telling him this. Now, of course, these are high-ranking government individuals, so it's not just like he's hearing conspiracy theories on the street or anything like this. But it's important, just as we evaluate this information, no, it is very interesting that this respectable individual is talking about this. Very, very interesting. But also important to keep in mind that it is it is a secondhand information. It wasn't that he was involved with this. It wasn't that he was a part of it. It wasn't that he saw these things. He was told about it. But still, let's continue and see.
The U.S. government has recovered non-human craft for decades. He's filed a whistleblower complaint saying he gave what he calls the classified proof to Congress and the intelligence community inspector general. News Nation has confirmed David Grush's credentials and resume. We've not seen or verified the alleged proof he says he's provided to investigators. He says he can't show us the proof for national security reasons. He also tells us he's not seen photos of the alleged craft himself, but has talked extensively with other intelligence officials who have.
All right, so apparently he has documents that are evidence, but I guess he's saying that he showed it to investigators or something like that. But whatever the case is, this evidence that he apparently has is not something that he has shown the public. So that's a little odd. I mean, obviously it would be very, for security reasons, that makes sense. But still, looking at this from a skeptical position, things to keep in mind. Now, remember, I'm going to give what I think about all this with regard to aliens and otherworldly beings, etc., at the end here. So whether you believe he's telling the truth or you believe it's a hoax, doesn't, either way, you're going to find what we're going to talk about to be interesting.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated...
Now that's kind of like, of course, yeah. I mean, that's no big shocker there that, the government lies about things, no big shocker there, but.
Disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
Now, this is very interesting. So again, to kind of, use the scales of, wow, sounds pretty intriguing, pretty interesting. But also remembering, well, it is secondhand information, and for some reason, for national security reasons, he can't show the proof. He's never seen it, never seen photos, so it's all secondhand. So, remember to weigh. This is where exercising reason comes really into play here.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
It's also harder for people to wrap their minds around the concept of a crashed object from somewhere else. It's easier to accept that, yeah, we see things in the sky that we can't explain.
Journalist Leslie Kane broke Grush's whistleblower story this morning in the debrief. Miss Kane's career has been mainstream and credible, having...
I want to skip to this guy because there's a lot that I want to talk about, and so I just want to see all the interviews with this individual because that's really what is being focused on here.
All these people who don't know each other to make something like this up.
So I've got to be blunt about this. Yeah. You're not making this up. This is not a lie.
No, absolutely not.
Because everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. Mm-hmm. They're going, is this guy for real?
I am for real. And I'm sitting here at great personal risk and obvious professional risk by talking to you today.
And just within the last 10 minutes or so, the Pentagon has released a statement to News Nation about this report. They say to date, AARO has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. AARO is committed to following the data and its investigation wherever it leads. AARO, working with the Office of the General Counsel and the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, has established a safe and secure process for individuals to come forward with information to aid AARO in its congressionally mandated historical review. AARO's historical review of records and testimonies is ongoing and due to Congress by June 2024, and AARO welcomes...
Okay, so they're basically saying, No, this isn't true. Let me see if there's any more with the individual. No, that's it. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So I think you'd agree. Very interesting, right? Very, very interesting to have this respectable individual with the position that he had to come in and say, hey, yes, there is a program about retrieving alien craft. These alien craft have sometimes bodies, extraterrestrials in it. This absolutely exists 100%. That's what this guy is saying. So very, very interesting, very intriguing. Also to keep in mind, though, remember, it is secondhand information. He didn't see any of this. He hasn't seen any photos of this. He apparently has evidence, but can't show it for national security reasons or whatever have you. So, that is also, something to keep in mind that's pretty suspect as well. So let's talk about this. Is this real? Are there aliens among us? What are aliens, etc.? Okay, so important to right off the bat, do aliens exist? Yes, of course they do. It'd be silly to think that aliens don't exist. We have a very wide universe, and there are more planets than there are grains of sand. So it would be silly to think that I think there's more habitable planets than grains of sand on Earth. So it would be very silly to think that there aren't aliens out there. Yes, of course there are. But there's a couple things that I want to differentiate between, okay? So there's the idea of a technologically advanced species that we would call alien that exist on another planet that have bodies, okay? So that's what most people think of when they think of alien. They think of aliens as little green men or whatever, just having bodies, being very technologically advanced, existing on some planet with starships and starfleets and flying around in their ships and conquering the galaxy or spreading a mission or whatever. That's what most people think of when they think of aliens. So do those aliens exist? Yeah, of course they do. Like, sure. I mean, probably not the way that they might seem in movies or whatever, but on their planets, wherever they may be, yes, of course. But there's another concept that we have to think about, and we're going to come back to those aliens as well, and answer the question: are they really here? Are they on Earth? But another thing that we have to really think about is the fact that there are higher beings, and that is when aliens evolve, or any species evolve to a sufficiently high degree of their evolution, they no longer require attachment to the physical domain. So this is what we call planetary or holos independence. So evolution goes through three phases: survival, planetary civilization, and holos independence. Right now, humanity is right at survival, trying to transition to planetary civilization. And that's what we are as the neogenian, the new beginning. We are trying to be the catalyst to usher humanity into the new beginning rather than having the collapse of civilization. So anyway, we are this new beginning. We are getting humanity to move from survival to planetary civilization. So the planetary civilization phase is the phase where you can imagine technologically advanced, self-aware, and eventually hyper-aware species. And this is also what we're trying to get humanity to do, is transition to a new consciousness, from self-awareness to hyper-awareness, when you have an awareness of the all and have developed a new structure in the mind to understand that we are a united system, understanding itself through itself. But I digress. Anyway, so aliens, as humans understand them, exist in this second phase of planetary civilization. This is when the planet is working together as a unity in a very high state of consciousness. And because of their development of unity in a high state of consciousness and working together, they'll be able to develop very high methods of sophisticated methods of technology, etc. But the third phase is holos independence, and that is when that species no longer they've evolved to a state when they're no longer looking for outwards expansion, but are instead focusing inwards and focusing on the evolution of consciousness and integrating their unity. So they will eventually reach a point where they have synchronized and they act as a sub-network mind. So they're acting as one mind, with individual nodes, like a neural network, but this would be a Zedic neural network, a mental neural network, a network of eternal minds that have synchronized and have developed the ability to tune such that they are able to project and create their own CFD, or collective frequency domain, meaning they no longer require the physical domain. They no longer require the holos. They have created, if you will, to put it in simple terms, their own mental dimension that they now reside in. So in simple terms, a species gets to a point in its evolution where it becomes a being of pure mind and no longer, that's the whole point of planets. The whole point of planets is to have avatars that can host Zetic minds, Zetas, eternal minds, and it puts them in a finite area where they have to share resources and there's limited space to force them to work together, which is like a forced synchronization, or at least to make it so that they have to learn to work together, which causes Zetic synchronization or mental synchronization. And this ultimately forms a subnetwork mind. And the subnetwork mind is a mind composed of all our minds that now no longer requires a planet because we've been tuned to the same frequency, if you will, and we can create our own domain. So we're no longer residing in the physical domain. And you can see this all around you as social media develops, as the internet develops, as AI develops. You see how everything's more connected, more and more and more and more connected. We're getting more and more connected. Humanity just needs to realize that it's, that's why we want humanity to reach hyper awareness, so it realizes what it's doing and can direct technological evolution according to its own teleology, according to its own purpose, rather than a capitalistic purpose of making money and getting people to watch ads, so that we can actually work on our evolution, our meaning, our experiences together. So what does this all have to do with aliens? This has to do with aliens because there's two ways to think of aliens. Aliens in the planetary civilization phase, which are a technologically advanced species on a planet with technology like starships. And then aliens as those that are a subnetwork mental being, a being of mind that resides in, say, another dimension, does not reside in this dimension here. Now, contact with these higher beings is done through the mind. Obviously, they don't exist in this realm, so you can't contact them through radio signals or light signals or anything like that. You don't contact them by having them land their planet on your starship and them going, "We come in peace." Contact through them is made through the domain of mind, through the ability to tune, perhaps trance states, channeling. I'm very soon releasing a video on trances and channeling with regard to contacting higher beings. So I'll be doing a video on that very, very soon. So it's important to understand that contact with higher beings is not made physically, it's made mentally. Okay? So, but now let's talk about aliens in the second phase that actually do have a body, that have starships. Are they here? First of all, do they exist? Yes, they exist. Now, are they here? All right, so that's the big question. So in my opinion, so from what I understand about how reality works, I have devoted quite a lot of my life to this, and what we know from the neogenian system and meta-rationalism and all this, knowing all this, I would say that those higher minds, those ones that are no longer in physical form, are very interested in human evolution. They are very interested in it because they either want to help human minds and the world to synchronize in a certain way, or perhaps even see if certain minds are compatible with their system and perhaps be sort of recruiting minds, if you will. So in my you have these various subnetwork minds, and these subnetwork minds can have various ideas on how a planet should synchronize. Some might want it to synchronize in a negative fashion. Some might want it to synchronize in a positive fashion. Others might want to synchronize it in a synthesized fashion. So you have these minds that are interested in the development of humanity for mental evolutionary purposes. Okay. So anyway, the point being, the way and I'll talk about this in a lot of detail later in other videos and material. But there's a lot to get through, and I want to try and explain it as succinctly as possible. But my point being here is that when you have these that these beings of mind are very much interested in the evolution of humanity, kind of like how you would be interested in like a development of a plant that you were growing or something like that. Now, I'm not saying that these minds like seeded the earth or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that it's something that you are watching grow and you are interested in its development. Okay. And like I said, contact with these minds are not going to be via little green men or technology, it'll be through the mind, unless you have technology that helps aid the mind in tuning, but not externally. Also, another way that these subnetwork minds can aid the evolution of Earth is for having one of their nodes or a zeta associated with that subnetwork mind to relocalize or incarnate on Earth in a body to help move Earth in a certain direction through the body that it's incarnated as. Now, of course, because of the limitations of the mind and of the brain and the nervous system, that's very risky because that Zedic mind isn't going to remember that it chose to do that. So it might get distracted. It might never wake up to its purpose. But if it does, at least unconsciously start to move humanity in a certain direction, that would be the purpose of subnetwork minds having sort of Zedic minds relocalizing on Earth to be able to help move it in a certain direction. So different ways of understanding alien, right? You can understand alien as being these otherworldly beings of mind that can be communicated through mentally. You can understand them as Zedic minds that have localized on Earth, by being born in a body. And then you have the idea of what normally people think of as little green men in spaceships whizzing around the universe. So do they exist? Yes, they do. Now, are they here? That's the big question. So my position is I think I'm sorry, I was just making sure that my microphone was still on. It was showing me red, but I think everything is fine. My position is I think that it is possible, but unlikely. And let me tell you why. So my position is that humanity faces cataclysms at each phase to push it to its next level of evolution. So like right now, we're trying to go from survival to planetary civilization. We face different cataclysms like nuclear war, global warming, global pandemics, whatever it is. We face challenges, AI perhaps, we face challenges that require us as a planet, as a human race to work together to overcome. Nuclear war is the greatest example of this because we all basically are at a standoff with each other. Every country or all the countries that have this power are all holding each other at gunpoint, hostage basically. And it's like, who's going to fire first? And the only reason why one's not firing at the other is because they know if they fire, the other will fire. So if humanity were to reach a new level of consciousness, it'd realize, oh, well, wait, we're all in this together. We're all reflections of each other. So for us to be threatening the other is really just like pointing it at our own heads. So of course, at a new consciousness, we would be, and we'd set it down. So these cataclysmic events, nuclear war being a really good example, forces humanity to, either synchronize, work together, form a cohesive planetary civilization, reach that level of consciousness, or collapse of civilization. There is another option, a more negative option, and that is a forced unity. I won't get into that too much now, but that basically has to do with, capitalistic people taking over and basically being saviors by perhaps solving problems through technology or whatever, but then implementing a very strict capitalist hierarchy. And then you basically have like a slave system that develops, which is a forced unity, a slave system of a forced unity, which is a slave framework. But of course, we don't want that either. So there's basically three options, either modernity, humanity, civilization collapses, or a slave framework forms, or humanity actually reaches hyper-awareness and we synthesize and synchronize and build a teleological world, a teleocratic planet, teleocratic world. But anyway, I digress because there's so much interesting stuff to talk about here. It's a very, very fascinating subject. One of my favorite subjects. I love thinking about this sort of stuff because it's very, very important, incredibly important. This is the crux of everything that we're about, is reaching this next stage. But anyway, when it comes to aliens, why do I think it's unlikely? I think that it's possible, but I think it's unlikely. Why? Okay, because the cataclysmic so we face cataclysmic events like nuclear war, which is the transition from survival to planetary civilization. Well, the transition from planetary civilization to Holos independence, that is being a united, technologically advanced species, to no longer requiring the physical realm, the cataclysmic event there will be, in my opinion, most likely asymptotic burnout. It might be something else, but I think asymptotic burnout is a very good candidate for what it may be. Now, asymptotic burnout is a theory put forward by And I'll put it on screen because if anyone is interested in this, I highly recommend checking it out. It is a great article or research paper. Okay, so this research paper is called Asymptotic Burnout and Homeostatic Awakening, a Possible Solution to the Fermi Paradox. Now, this is a paper by highly intelligent individual, Michael Wong and Stuart Bartlett. Michael Wong is like an astrobiologist or something incredible. And Stuart Bartlett, let me see it. Well, hold on. So Stuart Bartlett is researches thermodynamics, dissipative structures, pattern information, origins of life, power systems. He's very, very well researched. And then Michael Wong is astrobiologist, researcher, etc. So these are these are highly intelligent, well-educated individuals. These aren't conspiracy theorists. So this article is really great. Highly recommend it for anyone, or research paper. Highly recommend for anyone interested in this. Basically, what this says is that what is asymptotic burnout and what is homeostatic awakening? Basically, and it's a solution to the Fermi paradox. And the Fermi paradox is, how come we haven't encountered aliens? Basically, the universe should be teeming with life. How come we haven't encountered aliens yet? So asymptotic burnout says, versus homeostatic awakening, is that basically a species will reach a certain point in their development where they are expanding, right? They're making outward expansion to other planets, other locations, the galaxies. They're creating starships, they're creating, civilizations and other planets. You can think of it kind of like, in the early days of, people going out on boats to discover new land, to discover the Americas or whatever, conquistadors or whatever. So you have this idea of instead of going out into the sea to explore and find other land, you have a technologically advanced species building starships, exploring planets, exploring the universe, building more and more technology. Well, what asymptotic burnout says is that according to the study here, according to their data and their analysis, a species will reach a point where the power requirements for all of their expansion, right? The power required to expand in the way that they're expanding will exceed how much power they have access to. And this includes factoring in advances in technology to increase power. So basically what this says is that a species that is obsessed with outward expansion will at some point collapse because the power required for outward expansion will be more than the power that it can generate. So what it says, this paper says, is that species needs to realize, and they're talking about us because they're basically saying they're trying to prepare us. This paper is basically like saying like, hey, at some point this is going to be us. So this is kind of a warning. It's saying that instead of being obsessed with outward expansion and exploring the stars, you need to tune into homeostatic awakening is how they call it, which is basically the understanding that we need to create our world as basically as well functioning and as cohesive as possible, and exploring basically the mental realm and the inner realm rather than exploring outwards. Now, the reason why I find this to be a very good candidate is because it fits in very well with how we know reality works. We know that very likely, like we don't know this for sure, of course, there's always uncertainty, but extrapolating from what we know about existence, it seems very likely that at some point there is going to be a cataclysmic event facing this species that will force them to choose the ability to synchronize and no longer exist in the physical domain or collapse. And that is exactly what this would do, in that they would have to make a choice between continuing outward expansion or focusing on inner exploration. And that would make sense, because if they make the choice to focus on inner exploration, they'll develop their ability to tune, they'll develop their ability to be more synchronized, and then eventually they won't require the physical world anymore, and they'll be able to explore their create a new dimension and be a subnetwork mind, like we talked about, a higher otherworldly being that no longer requires the physical domain. And it makes a lot of sense, because it's kind of like our problems, but on another level. Like right now, we have the problem with capitalist billionaires and whatnot, and all kinds of thought systems in the world that are very selfish and focusing on profit and money rather than creating a unity. Well, fast forward to, okay, well, we overcome that. We create a planetary civilization. Well, now think about minds that are like, oh, yes, well, we must now, as a collective, expand further into the galaxy and see if we can find other species and whatever. You see, it's kind of similar when you'd be like, no. What you need to do is turn inwards and focus on developing our world, strengthening our unity, and exploring inner domains, and focusing on technology to explore inner worlds and tune to other frequency domains. So this is in my opinion, like, I don't know if this is, again, do we know that this is for certain true? No, but I think it's a very good candidate, and I highly recommend reading it. It's very interesting. Now, so if this is the case, basically, what does this have to do with, well, are aliens here or not? Well, if this is true, then the idea is that before a species would develop the ability to reach another planet through the physical domain, like via a starship, they would have asymptotic burnout and their society would collapse. So basically, what does this paper say? This paper answers the question, where are all the aliens? Why haven't we encountered them? And the answer this paper says is, well, either one of two reasons. Either because they tried to expand outwards and collapsed because they did not have the necessary power, or because they decided to focus inwards and therefore aren't expanding outwards, and in my opinion would then evolve to a point of no longer requiring the physical domain. So why aren't there aliens? Because either they have attempted to expand to a point where they don't have enough power and they collapse, or they have focused internally and therefore aren't trying to physically contact any species or encounter any other alien. Now, of course, they'll evolve to another subnetwork mind and then be interested in our planet and other planets on the mental level, making contact that way, possibly. But the reason why, but you see, there is one other possibility. There is a possibility that there might be a window. Okay, so let's imagine an alien species that's like, okay, we don't want to focus inwards. We want galactic expansion. We want to expand, explore the planets, etc. There's a small window of opportunity where they could develop the technology to reach another planet with life, like ours, for example, before they reach the point of burnout. So just to clarify that again, in case it's not super clear, there is the possibility, because remember, it's either they collapse because they don't have enough power, or they turn inwards. But there's the third small possibility that they have the technology to be able to reach other planets before they reach burnout. So that's a possibility. Now, the unfortunate thing about that possibility is that a species obsessed with galactic expansion that would reach that small window of opportunity to reach another planet probably wouldn't be the best of intentioned species. You could kind of imagine it like the CEO billionaires analog of because they would be very obsessed with galactic expansion rather than turning inwards. So it's saying that if we were to be visited by one of these during that small window of opportunity, it raises the question, what kind of what are their intentions, etc. It's kind of like how when humanity started exploring the seas and encountered new lands, they were not very kind to the residents there because they were all obsessed with conquest. So I'm not trying to, spread fear or anything. Hey, it's possible that they could be nice. They could be friendly. They could be friendly. Like you could just because you expand outwards doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be hostile to another planet, but it certainly raises the question of, if you are so obsessed with outward expansion, there's a lot more possibility of that species being more interested in conquest, or just have more of a questionable goal in mind, rather than a species that was like, oh, okay, we realize that conquest is not what we're trying to do here. We need to focus internally and expand to other domains and other dimensions, and then help this domain through helping things at the mental level. Now, that does not mean that there aren't it doesn't mean that all subnetwork minds are benevolent. I believe that there are malevolent subnetwork minds that want to create slave frameworks. So just because they've evolved to the mental domain doesn't necessarily mean that they are benevolent. But okay, so long story short, remember, couple different ways that you can conceive of aliens. You can conceive of aliens as being an otherworldly being. You can conceive of an alien as being a Zedic mind or an eternal mind that has localized in the body. That means they're, different. They could have incarnated, basically. Or as a little more like how Hollywood interprets them, as being very technologically advanced. And so for those technologically advanced ones, in my opinion, I think it's very unlikely, because I think that asymptotic burnout is a very possible candidate. However, is it impossible? No, I think that it's possible. I think that it's possible aliens could be here. Also, it's not 100% certain that asymptotic burnout is true. There likely will be some cataclysmic event. Will it be this one? I think it's a very good candidate based on what we know about existence. It fits in very, very well. Do we know for sure? No, we don't know for sure. So perhaps it is easier for aliens to arrive in a technologically advanced way. So my opinion is, do aliens exist? Yes. They exist in multiple ways. They exist on other planets, and they exist as otherworldly beings, higher entities, subnetwork minds, the domain of mind that have established their own frequency domains. Are aliens right here on Earth? I don't think so, personally. Is it possible? Yeah, it is. If next week they were like, oh, guess what? Actually, this guy's telling the truth. There are spacecraft, there are bodies. It'd be like, oh, wow, didn't think that was the case, but oh, interesting. So it wouldn't be like earth-shattering or shocking. It's just kind of like, in my opinion, based on the probabilities, I think that it is unlikely, but still possible. So it's not something that, I'm going to lose sleep over at night. If it happens next week, it's like, hey, it's just another thing we got to deal with. It's just, we're dealing with AI and everything that affects us. If they're like, oh, hey, guess what? Aliens are here now too. It's like, well, we'll deal with it. I personally don't really think so, but if it doesn't matter. Like, we will deal with it. So the thing is too, is that, remember, we want to move humanity to a new beginning. We are the neogenian. And as neogenians, we know that it takes a shift in consciousness to do so. All subnetwork minds that are interested in the growth of humanity also know that it requires a shift in consciousness to do so. So our primary directive is to aid humanity in its evolution as the new beginning, as a new consciousness. And if aliens are here, cool. It's not going to change our goals. It's not going to change what we're doing. Let's not get distracted. Let's not get this stuff in the news. Really interesting, all this stuff is always interesting, fun to look at, fun to listen to. It's exciting. Hey, if aliens were here next week, that'd be exciting as hell. Shake things up a little bit. Let's see what's going on. But whether they are or aren't, we need to remain focused, because we don't want stuff like this to distract us. Even I read another article that was like, this seems really weird. Is this like a distraction? Is this just distracting us from something else going on? Could be a distraction. But the main thing with all this stuff going on is to not lose focus on what we are, where we are, and why we are here. We are here to help humanity move forward, and regardless of if aliens here or not. And it's fun. It's fun to think about. It's definitely interesting, and it's exciting. Like, I'll still follow this. I'll still follow this and be like, oh, okay, well, let's see what's happening here. So I think that's the main thing to understand. Different ways of viewing aliens. Very important to understand the concept of higher beings. That's very important to understand. Extremely important. A lot of people dismiss this, but obviously the level that we are currently incarnated at with these avatars is not the optimal form of expression. There are, this is where we are headed as well. Like, we are headed evolutionarily towards a subnetwork mind. And, you never know what our origins are either. It's very possible that, this is the concept of star seeds in New Age, the concept of otherworldly beings that are us, that we are the otherworldly beings that have incarnated or localized to help humanity move forward. So is it possible that we have our origin in these subnetwork minds that have chosen to incarnate and localize to help humanity forward? That's possible. But again, like I always say, do we know that that is true? No, we don't. But it's possible. But regardless if we are, from a subnetwork mind, from another planet or whatever, or not, none of that matters. What matters is our mission. And regardless of our origin, our mission is to help humanity move forward. Help humanity move forward. Why? So that we can create a world that is thriving, a world of prosperity, a world of abundance, a world of meaning, a world of growth, a world where we are growing, learning, and having experiences together, where we can really enjoy life instead of being stuck in the survival mindset. Life is about growing, learning, and experiencing. Always remember, we're gods. What do gods do? Gods create, gods transform, and gods enjoy their creation. So we have to remember, a lot of people miss the enjoyment part of it, or they'll just be super lazy and they'll miss the growth element of it. So it's about both. It's about learning, growing, understanding, raising consciousness, and enjoying the world that we have created and the world we will create. We just want to create a better world. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this and got a lot from it. And this is a members only video. I release one members only video to the public per month. So maybe you'll see this, maybe you won't. I don't know. Big shout out to everyone who supports. I really appreciate it. And shout out to Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, Fairies of Venus, DB, William, Enki, Nusalina, Jose, and everyone else. Thank you very much.